shredding their cred. That's the focus of tonight's angle. It was back in February when Gallup reported that trust in the press is now at an all-time low. They're losing credibility every year. Because why? Because of their seething hatred of Trump and the MAGA movement. They've either gotten most of the major stories wrong or just purposely ignored what was obviously true. Now, some of the prime examples, how they downplayed the Biden border crisis, how they dismissed questions about Biden's decline. Of course, can't forget the truth about COVID, what closing the schools and businesses were going to do to the country, and then their celebration of men and women's sports. They love that. And now their sudden interest in Jeffrey Epstein. For years, their incessant peddling of the Trump delusion of Russian collusion, that lie. And, of course, they trusted Obama's intel chiefs blindly. It was all a joke. The so-called mainstream press has botched so many stories, big and small, and made so many predictions that never came true that the entire industry is having an existential crisis. But what's odd here is they refuse to do the basics to dig themselves out of the hole they're in. Instead, they're digging themselves in deeper. Byron York, who'll join us in a few moments, recently tweeted, "Such an odd time. At precisely the moment we learned definitively that the premise of the biggest hysteria of Trump was Trump won, the Trump administration was false, some of the same people who stoked it are working hard at spinning up a new hysteria for Trump, too." We'll speak with Byron again in moments. Now, one would think that when thousands of documents are declassified regarding the debunked Trump-Russia narrative, that the press and all the elected officials would take these documents seriously. But no, they just pretend that it's all old news and they try to change the subject to an issue they never cared about during Biden's term.
He doesn't want us to talk about the Epstein scandal, so he threw up Tulsi Gabbard to bring out this old, unsubstantiated charge against Barack Obama, who was 3 presidents ago.
He told us that he knew that Epstein liked women on the younger side, girls on the younger side.
You're alleging criminality.
If he
Go
knew.
ahead, say it directly.
No,
say it so we can all hear it. You're
I'm saying it out loud because I think that's what a lot of people are wondering.
What a despicable thing to say, even for Ana Navarro. That's what a lot of people are wondering. That's called gossip. Okay, sweetie? Now, especially after no one in the Biden administration thought Epstein was a priority or any of the documents that they're desperate to, have released. For 4 years, they didn't care. Now, no wonder people hate the media. Now, at this point, neither the press nor the Democrats have a shred of cred. A few months ago, the Journal's Gerard Baker, no fan of Trump, summed up the reputational pit that the press is in. The ability of the traditional media to influence events is attenuated to the point of near extinction. The best measure of this? Most of them spent a decade trying to defeat Donald Trump. 10 years on, he's stronger than he's ever been. No one cares anymore, meaning no one cares about what the press has to say. Of course, we know MSNBC's ratings, CNN's ratings, they're in the toilet day and night. They feature former government officials with fancy resumes, but zero common sense. Obama's mucking around with intel assessments. That's not undermining democracy. But Tulsi's being open and transparent about it is.
What Tulsi Gabbard, I think, is doing will cause generational damage to the countries that we need to share intelligence with us and the American people who should have every faith and every confidence in the leaders of our intelligence community.
Nice try, Ned. The American people don't trust the intel agencies, not because of someone who's been at the DNI for 5 months, but because of people like James Clapper and John Brennan, who were moving at the direction of Barack Obama himself. It was all a lie. Like almost everything about the Obama aura, it was all fake. This was from October 2016, when Obama talked about how he viewed his obligations and responsibilities as president.
I'd make the effort to, as best I could, be honest to the American people, to make sure that I was protective of the institutions, that there are certain norms and standards and values and customs that make it work. If you are willing to say anything and do anything, even when it undermines everything that's been built by previous generations, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. And yes, it was, because of what you did. And now your legacy, Mr. President, is coming into full focus. For decades, we warned that the so-called mainstream press, they were ignoring the concerns of normal Americans. And when they did this, they were isolating themselves in a left-wing bubble, and that they were becoming less and less relevant as they became more and more extreme. Well, they ignored us, laughed us off, just waved us off, and doubled down on their deranged partisanship. And now they're paying the price. Americans are moving on, and the folks who spent the last 10 years lying about President Trump are being left behind and exposed one by one. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.